In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to edit your copy so it looks sharp every single time, it's optimized for conversions, and you can actually make sales with it. Alright, so right now you've got a great piece of a letter or a sales letter, an ad, email, something that looks great, and you think in your mind you're done. But let me tell you, this is the very beginning of after writing and after researching and outlining. When you're done with your first draft, and hopefully, like I said in this video above, you're going to be able to actually have a great finished letter in one round. But you are not done. Matter of fact, you are far from done, because you actually have to make this thing polished. You have to edit it. You have to make it look great and be acceptable to turn in, and make sure that it's optimized for conversions for your client. So your client is going to get a lot more customers, a lot more leads, a lot more sales from your product that you have just crafted. That's a finished product that looks amazing and is sharp and branded. And if you don't know how to do this, then I guarantee you, you're going to have sloppy errors, grammatical, spelling, all types of issues with it. What's up, my friend and Motive Emotion family? This is Evan. I'm coming at you for the third video in the installment of my 5-step proprietary copywriting formula. We're going to be focusing all about the editing, which is the most important part when you're actually trying to polish something that you've written. And before we dive in, if you've been getting value from this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to this channel as well, because you'll get all the new updates by clicking that little bell on the notification level. And if you're able to, click the subscribe and or like and or the ringing bell, you will actually be notified by all the new videos that I'm dropping. Because I am dropping a lot of new videos in the near future, and I've got a lot of exciting stuff coming your way. I'm excited to drop it because I've got, obviously we're finishing out this 5-step formula, which is my proprietary copywriting formula that I'm serving clients with. And we've got all the videos that are linked up there and the specific, breakdowns for each one of those, and the longer video that covers the whole process of start to finish writing a sales letter that gets you money and gets prospects happy, gets converted leads, and gets you, really raking in money and being able to do whatever you'd like with your career in copywriting, and living from, really living wherever you'd like to do as well, because this is what I'm doing, this is what I've been doing for several years, and it's helped me live wherever I want in the world. So if you're interested in that, then you should actually learn how to write copy, because it's a great skill set. And so like I said, if you want to check those videos, you can click the little card. And if you like this content, all I would ask is just click the like button, just smash it and obliterate it, and like throw your keyboard through your computer to make sure that it's smashed and sufficiently, subscribed to, so you can get the bell notifying you every time with the new videos, because otherwise sometimes people are just subscribed and they actually don't get notifications for the videos that I'm dropping, which is odd. So I want the maximum circulation so you guys can get the value. And of course, as this brand grows and as you support it by liking and subscribing and sharing with your dolphin and your pet cat and your mom and your uncle, like anybody who likes marketing, you shoot this their way. This is the type of stuff that grows the brand. It gives me personal time to assert to more content and videos like this. So make sure you do that, and thank you for doing that as well. And I'm also diving very deep in the 5-step copy formula right here in a much longer video. It's about an hour where it goes through the whole 5 steps. And don't worry, this type of video, we're gonna go dive deep right into editing. And the 5-step video, which is about an hour or so, that one actually is giving you unique value steps and the whole strategic flow with a lot of different screen caps and videos showing you my exact process. It's not just repeating the same stuff that's in this video compounded for 5 videos, so five topics in one. It's actually giving a lot more unique in-depth value. So you should check that video up right here, where we're talking about specifically how to make a polished copy piece, whether it's an ad, a sales letter, an email, a sequence of emails, a direct response ad to specific people in terms of like the one-on-one outreach, maybe cold email or a cold sales letter offline. This editing part is so drastically important that you really need to master it, or else you're not actually creating good copy for your listeners and your readers. Because when you write and you just do the second step, which that whole video for number 2, the step 2 of 5, which is writing, the actual copywriting, the most important thing, that is right here. That video is here, so you can click that. But when you're done with that step, you actually need to make it sure that it's super sharp, it's super optimized for conversions, and you're going to be able to sell people in your actual copy, rather than just crafting something that kind of is okay, and then you're just done, and then you turn it in, and then your client, worst case scenario, notices all your edits and your errors and whatnot. That's the worst thing that you can do, because they're giving you money, if you think about it, to craft something that's excellent and sharp and high quality, and then you absolutely do not want them to have the reread and be like, oh, that's weird, you missed this and that, and oh wow, that grammar is wrong and this is misspelled, like what the hell, and they send it back. That's the opposite of what you want. You never want that to happen. You are your own editor and your own best friend in this scenario, because you should be actually at the end of the writing stage from this editing spot, where you really won't be writing unless you're appending something extra later when you recognize that it needs to be done. But this editing stage is where you are in a different mind frame, as we talked before in this longer video, where you're speaking to yourself from a different perspective. You're almost like your own third person looking at your own copy that someone else wrote. It's like that mind frame that you need to have with your approach, because you don't want to just finish writing and then try to go in and edit. You want to be done with writing. You want to be crafting a great message, and then, like I said, close your laptop, go eat a sandwich, go on a walk, whatever it is. Walk your dog, hang out, take a shower. Like, these are the types of things that give you a mental reset and let you step into the editing mode, because there's two modes that I really talk about, and it's the writing phase and the editing phase. And essentially, when you're separating these two, it's the most vital thing that you can actually do for your copy, because you are, like I said, looking as almost an onlooker, like a detached observer of your own copy, and you're able to really go through it and comb through it with a very fine-tooth comb, looking at the different copy and what you wrote, what you came up with, what you created in a general format. Once you're done with that, then you, like I said, close the laptop, put it away, go do something else, and then come back later when you're in a fresh state of mind. I'll give you a secret ninja pro tip here. So the editing phase is actually more about removal than it is addition. It's more about subtracting things that don't need to be there than it is adding new things in there and making sure that you kind of junk up the whole thing with everything and finish it that way. And it's so powerful and important this way, because if you don't do this, you really have no idea where your messaging is supposed to lead from one step to another. You think that you have all this other stuff and you're adding extra things in there, but you really are junking up the flow. Like I said before, you're jamming up the gears. So the whole editing stage is one of removal and subtraction rather than addition. So I want you guys to recognize that and remember that when you're writing copy, that needs to be very sharp and well branded. So since we're in step 4 of my 5-step proprietary copywriting formula, I want to let you know how to use this stage, which is the editing stage, because the editing stage is so vitally powerful that it's almost like your last stage to being able to turn in your finished product. And this is the stage that lets you create everything that you want for the client and nothing that you don't. Like I mentioned before, you don't want them to recognize your mistakes. That's the very last thing. You don't want ever to have a client say, oh, that's not right, that's interesting, and hit you up and be like, why did you do this, or why is this misspelled, or whatever, can you rewrite that, whatever. Like, number one, it really reflects on your ability as a writer and as an editor, and number two, it's just a waste of time. And number three, really, it makes them think of you in a different light a little bit. It kind of takes some credibility from your work, because you didn't actually finish because you had some misspelled things. You should shoot for 100% accuracy. That's not always possible, but over time, you really want to make a high quality body of work that's polished and finished, and you want people to come to expect that quality from you and look forward to your future projects as you submit them, because that's important. So since we're on the step 4 phase of editing, I wanted to share everything that I do step by step for the 4-step, we're number 4 step out of 5, because basically we've covered already the research, which covers 4 parts of the market research: the market avatar, the product, and the offering and the messaging. You can check that video here if you haven't already. We've covered the outlining. Again, that video is linked here. And you've already covered the writing, which is your copywriting. That's your number 1 skill, right? So that video is also here. And now we're going to be covering the 4th step, which is the editing. You need to know how to edit. And if I'm going through this step-by-step phase, like I said before, it is a process of deleting and subtracting and omitting different things, and never is it adding to the story. Not always, but sometimes it can be, but usually it's actually going to be taking things away from it and deleting words that don't need to be there and phrases that don't make sense. And kind of like, if you skip the logical step, you can insert more copy in there, but then you have to do the editing process for that section or that outline subhead, right? Like we talked before in this video. You have to do that again and again, right? So you really want to understand the method that comes with subtracting things from the copy that's just a rough draft. And if you've actually worked, like I said in the video for number 3 of 5, which is the writing, you should be done with your full draft on the very first try, right? You should just basically sit down and bang out your whole first draft, even if it's long, even if it's 5,000, 3,000, 8,000, whatever words. If you can get that as much as it done as you can, basically in one shot, or maybe 2 shots that are like compounded, because you put those together and you have a lot of work in one space, maybe up the space of 4 hours, 3 hours, something like that, where you have a focused chunk blocked off. You're not on social, you're not watching TV, you're not really listening to music with a bunch of lyrics, or trying to tell us some background TV show that's telling you a story or something to get bled into your copy, which will happen inevitably. And you're in the similar emotional state and the similar logical focus and the objective mind. That is where you want to bang it out, right? It can be 2 drafts if you have to, but like I said, you really want to work out one and bang it out in one draft, go start to finish. That's the most efficient way that I found in my proprietary 5-step formula for the copy that I'm delivering for my clients in my own business right now. And over the years, I've charged high ticket, I've charged mid ticket, I've really escaped the low ticket realm for years now. And a lot of projects that I've worked on are either $500, $1,000, or whatever. That's like a low ticket project for me now. And the ones that are more exciting to me are like 5, 8, 10K and above, because those have more potential for delivery for clients and results. And like they already come to me with maybe 100K, 200K in revenue per month, or per year or more, and they're actually able to to apply the copy that I'm delivering to them, right? They have an ad budget, they got a marketing team, they have validated products in the marketplace, they have an awesome service that they're offering, right? They know their offers. This is the type of stuff where I can come in and match my skill set to their progress and be able to be on an eye-to-eye level. So I would recommend that to you as well. But when you're doing this, again, like I said, you really need to have a sharp focus, and you need to have a sharp quality of deliverables, right? Your deliverables, like your sales letter, your ads, your emails, they need to be very sharply branded in terms of optimizing it for the copy and for the conversions that you're looking to have, right? You need to tell a logical story. You need to be in the emotional benefits and pain points and the drivers that are going to make someone take a decision with you, right? It's the same thing in the video that I mentioned with the writing and also the outlining. All that stuff is coming from your research, right? So you need to know the copy, and you need to know the messaging, and you need to know the avatar, and you need to know your positioning for this product that you are foisting upon this market, right? So it really is kind of a compilation of everything that we've learned thus far, and that's why it works really well as my system. So let me just break down this whole system about how I start, right? So when I'm starting on a new piece of copy that I've just written, I'm actually, like I said, writing the whole thing, usually shooting it in one draft, and then closing the laptop and walking away for a few hours at least, maybe even a day, coming back to it later, right? That's like step number 1. That's the most important part. You need to be in a different mind state and a frame of mind and reference where you are editing only, right? You're done with writing, you're done with crafting something and being in a tunnel vision level where you're just going and barreling towards the end goal, which is telling the story and getting them to convert, and you're done with that process, right? And now it's time to make it sharp and clean and branded and optimized and also polished in terms of grammar and spelling. So this is the part where I'm actually coming back to my own copy and viewing it as a third person objective viewpoint, right? Like I mentioned before. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give it a full read through, right? I'm gonna give it a full read through with just mental focus. I'm not gonna be doing what I'm gonna be telling you in a second. I'm gonna be only reading through, start to finish, right? And the first rough draft needs to be edited in a rough draft way, right? So you should go from the very top of your copy, whatever it is, if it's an email or you're talking with the headline, starting there, and then you go all the way through the entire story and then conversion piece, and you're giving the utmost attention to this piece by, again, like it goes without saying, you need to be doing nothing else at any time, right? You need to be only focusing on one thing at a time. So in your mind, you're reading this piece, and as you find errors, which is inevitable in terms of grammar and spelling and logical word flow and maybe examples or metaphorical wordplay that you have, or storytelling and anecdotes and like all these things, as many things that you find, you're going to just reconnect the dots and correct each error along with that process, right? So you come across something and the sentence says, I don't know, like I was struggling so hard with this, with a lot of pieces, like it's all jumbled and you're like, wow, I put with and too much and whatever, like I need to cut this and make sure that this sentence reads properly. And then when you edit, I read the whole thing again, not starting from the very top, but if I edit a few sentences in a paragraph, I'm getting to the end of the paragraph where I'm done editing with that paragraph or that outline, I'm going back to the very first word of that paragraph and reading the whole thing again. Because when you're going through this process, you need to understand that it needs to be sharp and polished. And it's weird, like the way that I think about it, a lot of people maybe have a different viewpoint on this, but the way that I think about the writing and editing mind states and how they differ is when you're editing, you're going through and fixing a few things, but that edit process inevitably puts you back into the writing mode, the research and writing mode. You're instantly adding. So you should think about this. Whenever you're adding, you are writing. Whenever you're subtracting, you are editing, right? So if you're adding something, you're writing, you're creating, and you're appending something to your piece. If you're editing something, you're taking things out or polishing it or changing it a little bit, but you're not necessarily adding things. So think about it. Adding is writing, subtracting is when you're editing. So when you're oscillating back and forth from these mind states, you can kind of get jumbled in the mode where you actually edit something and then you realize that it still needs more editing. You should go through this round at least 3-4 times, at least from start to finish, right? So that's the first part of it, where I'm researching something and I put the edits together. I've already written the piece, and when I go through this personal, like story, whatever, when I'm actually editing the personal story part of the, let's say it's a course for online education or something like that, or it's like a brand, a personal brand or something that is teaching their own story, right, for their product and how it outlays into their service, right? I'm actually creating the part again and again and just crafting it before I move on to read and edit the rest of it, right? So like I said, if you're in a paragraph, you're reading and you're changing some things, you maybe add some other things, and you get to the end, you want to start over with that paragraph before you move on. Okay, so now you've moved on, right? You've got a next level, the next level of the outline, and you're gonna edit that for your own clarity, right? So the same process applies where you read and you make your way. You do this after step by step by step, and each outline and each, like we were talking about in this video with the writing or the outlining stage for your copy boarding system that I learned from Joe Schriefer, right? You're doing that process and you are, still editing in each one of those outlines and those objections, right? And then you move on and you move on, you move on. You do each next step and each next subhead and each paragraph that follows that with that CPPB formula that we talked about in the video. So that's what you're doing for each step. And then finally you should make it to the bottom, right? And then congratulations, you have your first read through. All right, cool. So that stage is done. You can move on to the next stage, which essentially is doing it again, but this time, once you've done your full in-depth breakdown of your edits, and you're subtracting everything, you're polishing everything, you're removing things that don't make sense, you're fixing grammar, you're fixing spelling, you're fixing anything that doesn't, that needs to be punctuated, right? Once you've done that, you're gonna go to the top again, and you'll have a pretty solid draft that might be somewhere between like 70 and 80% done, but you're not finished, right? The next stage is reading it out loud. So you're gonna read your headline in a way that sounds salesy, kind of advertising way, like somewhere between, like cheap, like telemarketer and the used car salesman spectrum, all the way to like a professional radio announcer or sportscaster, right? Between there is like where you should find somewhere in the middle, right? Because you do want it to be engaging, which is what the greasy sales guys from the used car salesman stuff, those guys have that down. They want to be salesy and in your face and like giving you discounts and popping everything. Like that's cool. And it does work, but you don't want to be over hypey throughout your whole message. So then you also don't want to be boring and dry as like a sportscaster or like an NPR radio host or whatever. No, not picking on those guys, but you know what I'm saying. You don't want to be in that boring range. You don't want to be super salesy. You want to be right there in the middle because that's a good balance. So you want to kind of read your advertisement or your letter to yourself and as if you were selling it to someone or as if you are coming across it and reading it out loud to yourself and being like, what is this product? What is this offer? I don't know. I'm new to it, so I'm just going to read it out loud and see what it is, right? That's where you want to be. And when you do this, you're going to pick up, the key to this is you're going to pick up brand new things that you totally missed on your last edit, which is the first step of your editing process, right? So we got the first step, which is like a broad overview, a run through of your entire copy, and then editing and subtracting and taking some things away and putting some other things there and making sure you're polished and like optimizing it and going through the story flow. That's your first step, right? This second step is your out loud read through, right? This is the most important thing because you're actually going to say what you've written, right? This is such a key concept. Like it's such a little secret hack. Like I don't know how many people are doing this because I learned this from some of my mentors in copy, but I really think that most people, if you look at some of these ads and some of these messages and whatnot, they're just so unpolished and so unprofessional and so not sharp, so dull, right? That you just think like, did you actually go through this? Did you edit this? Like, are you really finished with this? Did you you come across a live ad and you wonder like, did you really put this into the marketplace? Like, this isn't even half done, right? And I think that all the time when I come across a lot of sales messages, I just think like, this is not finished. So someone did that in a very quick way, in a rushed manner, but you're gonna counteract that. And this also protects you and insulates you, again, one level deeper with your client, so they're not the ones finding your mistakes, which is, again, something you never want to happen, right? Ideally, you can be shooting for 100% read-through and ratio, so someone would also read through everything, like a client and a lead would read through everything that you've created, but you do want to make it so it's very sharp and there's ideally no errors, which can be tough, but this step will help you make it where it's no errors. Like if you're reading through your entire process and you're gonna see things that you have maybe missed when you're mentally reading it over, this is going to help you make everything so much more sharp and make sure that it actually converts. Because the thing is, especially in the higher quality, higher, like more advanced niches, like where the market is more educated and they're more intelligent and whatnot, and they're not like buying things on an impulse, we're talking like high level finance markets, like the niches of maybe inside various finances, private investors or private equity or retail investors or institutional investing or B2B sales, where you're trying to sell a SaaS product or maybe a service solution or management consulting, and the business owner or the CEO or the CMO or whatever is going to be the person who's the target. They're the decision maker. So if they're reading your ad and it comes off way too salesy, or if you got three horrible mistakes that are just totally blatantly obvious right in the first few paragraphs, they're going to be turned off. They're going to be like, wow, you can't even write an ad, you can't even write English well, like this doesn't, like, how are you going to serve my process, right? And that's the thing that they're thinking. That's like the mental heuristic, where it's like a shortcut, where they're just going to see that and get turned off immediately and be like, this is not a fit for us, man. You can't even write English well. So how do you put a cohesive idea together into the market? How are you going to serve our business? Like, it doesn't really make sense to them to keep reading, keep investing their time into reading your message. And this is more important in those higher level, higher education, higher intelligence, and higher experience markets, instead of like maybe where it's just consumer products and the lower ticket levels of just mass marketing and just gonna hit millions of people. Like, that's a little bit different. Still don't want to have any errors though. You want it to be simple and short and punchy, but you do want to make sure that it's always polished, always sharp, and you're using sophisticated language with your actual copy on the higher intelligent markets, right? But a little side note to throw in there is, again, most people do read at the 8th grade level. Most people are very slow readers, and they really, most people don't read more than a book a year, if that, after college. Like, they hardly pick anything up educational, after, high school or college if they go, right? So you do want to use simple words and simple formats. And you look at people who are great marketers, it's because they know how to get a great idea across and get buy-in and get maximum engagement from the market by using simple words and simple ideas that really will convert other people to, buying into your product or your service, right? So keep that in mind and balance that delicate flow, and keep searching for the ideal balance between that radio talk show host and the salesy slimy guru, or the used car salesman or whatever. Like, somewhere between there, it needs to be an advertisement. This is an ad, right? This is a sales piece. This is a persuasive conversion piece and an asset to your business. So with the editing, you do need to make it sharp, and this whole long read through verbally will help you immensely. I promise you that. It will level up your game in writing and editing your copy, because you're reading through this, mentally first and then verbally later. And these two, when put together, it's very hard to miss out on the actual thing that you're trying to say in the right way. Because after you've done this 2, 3, 4, 5 times, I would recommend at least 3, a minimum of 3. Once you've done the process mentally reading, I'd say 2 or 3 times is okay. And then at least, doing the one verbal read through, then you have a piece of edited, polished copy that's almost ready to be turned in, right? And this is really so important for your clients and for your prospects, because after they've actually signed up with you and they've sent work your way and they trust you to deliver what you're good at and what your number one skill is and what you're getting paid for, then you feel much better and you give them something that's complete and finished, right?
I go in my mind, I forget back, and it's so crazy.
So the thing that I would say is the final step to recognizing that you are finished, right? You get to that state where you're like, all right, well, this is good enough to turn in, is after you've already done the mental breakdown and the mental read through for at least 2 or 3 times, and after you've done the formula where you've read your piece alive, it's a live piece where you have verbally spoken your advertisement into existence by reading everything and making sure you catch every possible, error or thing that you've omitted or accident that you didn't mean to put in there, or something that doesn't make logical sense, or maybe the story flow is not correct, right? After you've done all those things, you are going to be actually polishing it one last time by doing a final read through. So you first do the mental read through, then you do the verbal read through, and then you do one last mental read through and make sure that you've got all the capitalization, all the grammar, all the punctuation, all the spelling correct, all the story on point, all the emotional and pain points driver to really squeeze out the juice of those benefits so you can really sell the prospect on something that would make their lives better. You've identified with them, your headlines are spaced and everything is perfect, right? There's a lot of highlighting and deleting and editing and tweaking in this last stage. And if you can think about this last final stage as the last 10% of squeezing out the last 10% of juice and value in your proposal to the client, the customer is reading this. This is like your proposal for selling them, right? You're putting this ad or sales letter or email out into the ether so they can read this. This is going to be the final step that is between you producing that and them reading it, right? It's that last 10% step. And it's the last thing you really need to do before we move on to the step 5, which I'll have that video soon for you in these cards, right? This is basically a place where you have the last available option to make sure that everything looks super sharp in terms of your spacing, because even that will matter. Your images, if you have any, right? Your spacing between the heads, the subheads, and the headline, and all the size of the fonts and the formulas, and right? I like to have, double space between each subhead and maybe triple space after the headline, the main headline, right? And making sure that, you put the buy button in an isolated way between the triple space after each paragraph and before you start the new subhead, right? So I can throw an example on the screen about what this really looks like, but essentially you are actually creating something that is properly spaced and it has everything in a great format that is easy to read and easy to understand for the prospect, and they know that it's a comfortable read, right? It's a comfortable buy-in of information and a time and attention that they're spending to learn about your product and be sold to, right? They're enjoying the process. If it's all wrought with errors and grammar and spelling and the spacing's off and there's some weird stuff that doesn't look good and sharp, that's stuff that also will turn off your client, and they will just leave your page and just never to return again. That's exactly what you don't want to happen, right? So making sure that the spacing and that the last edit is the squeezing out of that 10%, that you're making sure that you are super sharp on this and everything is finalized, right? Then you can actually, begin to start turning in this piece that you finished with the client. So little recap. So we got first, you're going to do the regular reading in your mind, just the mental reading where you're polishing everything, you're omitting everything, and you are going back to, the beginning of the paragraph that you started with. If you do start editing some stuff, you go back to the start and you want to actually read it again. So that's the first step, right? The first step is creating something that's a mental read through. Number 2 is crafting something that's the verbal read through, so in your mind and in your verbal speech, you are reading this thing and making sure the start to finish flow is polished and it's clean, and you're picking up new errors and new grammatical and spelling errors and things you omitted and things that you need to add or subtract again. And as soon as you edit something by going in there with the keys again and writing something extra, again, you want to start over at that subhead and make sure that paragraph is dialed and sharp and looking great, and then read through it again before you move on, right? So that's step 2. Step 3 of this process is crafting a finalized last 10% message where you're finished and you know that this is actually worthy of turning into your client who has paid you handsomely, hopefully, right? And you can check some of my pricing strategies on my site if you're not sure how to price yourself or how to think about price or how to use these offers and whatnot. But this is how you do it, right? You are squeezing the last 10% of juice and of power out of your piece, right? So that's the third step, where you are finalizing this letter. You're using the spacing, you're making sure the spelling is on point, you're doing any last grammar tweaks, you're making sure the story flow is great, the emotional drivers are driving them to the sale, you're making sure that you're closing the sale, you're making sure that the story is on point with your research and matching that up and everything. This is the last finalized stage. And then and only then you're able to move on. So that's what I got for you today, guys. I hope that if you thought this was very valuable, and like I said, if you did, drop a like below. Click the little like, smash it, click the subscribe button as well, because I'm going to be dropping a lot more videos. Click that little bell to get notified, because you are going to get all the new notifications for each video. And if you're subscribed but not clicked into the bell, you probably won't be notified. But if you are, then obviously you're going to keep seeing these and whatnot. And then the last thing I would say is just share this with people. Like I said, if you got a pet dolphin or a lizard or a cat who would love to learn copywriting, if you want to talk to your mom about it, if you want to tell your uncle and your brother and your grandma all about copywriting and Evan and Mode of Emotion and whatnot, like, you are free to do so. And this really helps the channel grow, helps the brand grow, and helps me actually be able to put more time into helping you. So help me help you, and share this, like this, subscribe, and that's what I got for you today. Once again, it's Evan from Mode of Emotion. Thank you for joining me for step 4 of the editing process of my 5-step proprietary copy formula that I am delivering for all my clients on a daily basis, peeling back the curtain in my business and showing you exactly what works. See you soon.